locked the HOA president, Darren, in my garage with a live skunk, not figuratively, but literally. Yes, I've got VUI Deo e VUI Denke to prove it. The guy had the nerve to break into my property, Yunin VUI Ted, oozing self-righteous entitlement, only to end up spending the worst half hour of his life trapped in a place he had no right to be, alongside a freaked-out, fully armed skunk. Some folks learn through a chat. Others need a formal letter, but Darren? Apparently, he required a full-blown wildlife showdown to grasp the concept of boundaries. It all kicked off the day I moved into what I thought would be a calm, tidy suburban neighborhood, the type with neat flower beds, uniform mailboxes, neighbors who nod but don't linger, and just enough yard to avoid feeling claustrophobic. I'd saved for years to buy this place. A snug house with a big driveway, a 2-car garage, and a small front lawn that wouldn't demand my weekends. I was over the moon. That bliss lasted about 2 days. I hadn't even unpacked my kitchen stuff when he showed up, clipboard in hand, polo shirt tucked hard into khakis, and a grin so forced I wondered if he'd rehearsed it. He didn't say his name was Darren right off, but the VYB screamed it. Turns out he was the HOA president, a title he dropped within seconds like it was a golden ticket. He pointed at my SUV, parked neatly in my own driveway, and said, "That vehicle might be an issue." I blinked. Why? It's registered, clean, and on my property. Darren coughed like he was about to recite scripture and said, "This community upholds a specific aesthetic standard. Oversized vehicles disturb the visual flow." I almost laughed, thinking it was a joke. Visual flow? It's a standard Toyota Highlander, not a jacked-up rig with neon rims. I asked if there was a rule. He said yes. I asked to see it. He said he'd follow up, then handed me a welcome packet, stuffed with rules that sounded like they were penned by a control freak with a grudge. Nothing about vehicle size, just vague garbage like avoid visual clutter and uphold neighborly best. I didn't want trouble, but I wasn't about to let some petty suburban overlord dictate what I parked on my own land. So I kept my SUV right where it was. That's when the notices started. At first, they were funny. One claimed I'd left my trash can out too long, a whopping 15 minutes past pickup. Another said my garage door was excessively noisy, which is just what garage doors do. He even griped that my mailbox was misaligned with street symmetry, whatever that means. After the third note, taped to my door like a scarlet letter, I realized this wasn't about rules. It was about power. Darren didn't like being brushed off, and he really didn't like being questioned. I started asking around discreetly. Turns out, everyone had a Darren tale. He told one guy his deck chairs were too bold. He fined an elderly lady for too many gnomes. He even threatened a family over birthday balloons lingering past 24 hours. Right then I decided I wasn't folding. I wouldn't scream or stoop to his level. I'd outlast him, outmaneuver him, and record every ridiculous move he made. I set up cameras around my place, including a Ring doorbell with cloud storage, and started a file called HOA Madness, stuffing it with every note, clip, and absurd accusation he threw at me. Then one day, I got home from work to a notice that cracked me up. It said I was misusing the garage for non-garage purposes. I stared at it confused. What's that supposed to mean? Was I supposed to hold car ceremonies in there? I had some shelves, a dusty treadmill, and leftover paint cans, normal garage stuff. I shrugged and tossed it in the file. The next day I came home early for lunch. Something felt off. The garage door was cracked, not open, but not shut tight either. My stomach knotted. I didn't leave it like that. I checked the Ring app and rewound 15 minutes. There he was, Darren, strolling into my garage like he owned it. No stealth, no shamey rummage through boxes, peeked behind shelves, hunting for some imaginary HOA violation. I saw red, but not the reckless kind, the cold, calculated kind. I walked to the garage, hit the button to lower the door, locked it from outside, and started recording. Inside I heard muffled surprise, then banging, then shouting. He was stuck on camera with no excuse, no warrant, no nothing. And I wasn't done with him yet. Darren didn't take his little lock-in lightly. After I let him out, let him out like a stray possum, I figured he'd slink home, rethink his choices. Nope. He doubled down like a gambler with a busted hand. He stumbled out, dusty and furious, muttering about lawsuits as if I were the criminal for catching him trespassing. He taped 3 new notices to my door the next morning. One accused me of detaining a community official, another claimed I'd blocked a routine HOA check, and the third threatened a hearing for hostile resident conduct. Hostile? He broke in. I could have called the cops, but I gave him a timeout instead. Still, I wasn't shocked. Darren's ego couldn't handle being wrong, let alone exposed. Over the next few days, he got petty walking by my house at odd hours, clipboard in tow, eyeing my flower beds or scribbling nonsense while loitering near my driveway. I caught him measuring my trash can spacing once. When I asked what he was up to, he said, ensuring compliance. I grinned and said, let me know if you want another garage tour. He didn't grin back. Word spread fast. Darren had ruled the HOA like a petty tyrant for years, and folks were used to dodging his nitpicking. But after my stunt, attitudes shifted. Neighbors I'd never met started nodding at me. One guy whispered, good work with the clipboard jerk, while walking his dog. Another left a six-pack on my porch with a note, you're a saint. I'd accidentally sparked a quiet uprising. But Darren needed a VY Tory to reassert his reign. He started hitting me with rules so absurd they felt like parodies. One claimed my grass was uneven in color. Another said my porch light was too intense. He tried fining me for a non-approved wind chime, a driftwood piece my sister made in art class. I stopped just taking it. Every notice went into the file, every encounter logged, every ring clip saved. I even recorded myself measuring my trash can's curb distance to debunk one of his fines. My HOA archive was getting so thick I considered pitching it as a Netflix special. Then came the HOA meeting. Held monthly at the clubhouse, I'd never bothered going until Darren added, Resident Misconduct Review EW, Lot 22, to the agenda. I arrived early, phone charged, EVY Denke folder ready, and a calm certainty I was about to wreck his day. About 30 people showed up, mostly for the free snacks. Darren sat up front with two board members who looked miserable. He kicked off with a rant about community values and disruptive residents, then pointed at me, spinning a tale of how I'd endangered him by locking him in my garage. He flashed a cropped ring screenshot conveniently omitting his break-in. My turn came. I strolled up, set my folder down, and asked, want the full VY Deo? I played at Darren sneaking in, snooping, then banging on the door, yelling about inspections. The room went quiet. I said, if anyone thinks this was legal, speak up. Otherwise, I can let the police sort it out. No one spoke. A board member muttered, let's move on. Darren looked like he'd eaten a sour grape. The meeting ended without another word about Lot 22. That night, an unsigned note slid under my door, you're the hero we didn't know we needed. I laughed till I cried. Darren didn't let it go quietly, parked too close to my mailbox, glared while I mowed, even hid in a bush once, pretending to trim it. I waved, he ducked. I knew he was cracking. He couldn't control me, couldn't break me, and the neighborhood had seen his true colors. That's when he made his dumbest move. Yeeth broke into my garage again. It was a Sunday, my one lazy day. No noise, no Darren sightings. I almost thought he'd given up. Mid-morning my phone pinged. Motion in garage. I checked the feed. There he was, Darren, back at it, trifling through bins, lifting covers, like he'd find a smoking gun behind my old patio cushions. The gall was unreal in camera, in daylight, after I'd already humiliated him publicly. It wasn't even maddening anymore, it was impressive in its stupidity. I threw on clothes, chugged my coffee, and went outside recording. The garage door was open, and Darren was crouched behind paint cans like a bargain bin sleuth. He jumped when he saw me, then puffed up with HOA bravado. I asked if he had a warrant or any reason to be there. He claimed an anonymous tip about fire hazards. I said the only hazard was his judgment. He started citing some vague HOA rule, but his voice broke, and it felt pathetic. I hit the garage button, locked it from outside, and waited. He yelled, banged, swore I'd regret it. I said, smile Darren, you're on candid camera. Here's where it gets wild. My cousin, Jake, a wildlife control guy, was VY sighting. He'd rescued a skunk that weekend, still stinky, prepped for decenting Monday. It was crated in his truck, nicknamed Lord Pungent. As Darren raged inside, I got an evil idea. I called Jake, who pulled up grinning. We cracked the garage door, slid the crate in, and shut it. The skunk whined, Darren froze. What's that? He shouted. Wildlife check, I said, biting back laughter. New rule you missed. Then chaos thumps, crashes, Darren shrieking like a BMO star, tripping over stuff, yelling that it stared at me. The skunk, riled up, started its warning toots. Jake and I were dying outside as Darren begged to be freed, promising no charges, even offering to quit the HOA. After 20 minutes, we opened the door. He stumbled out, dusty, panicked, and faintly skunky, not a direct hit, but enough to ruin his day. He said nothing, just shuffled to his car and peeled out. By nightfall, the neighborhood chat blew up. Someone saw Darren flee, another heard the chaos. I sent the footage to a board member anonymously. Soon everyone knew. Best part? Silencino notices, no patrols. Darren vanished from the scene like he'd been exiled. For the first time since MOAing in, I felt peace. Skunk scented, glorious peace. But I knew his type. This wasn't over. He'd be back, dumber and louder than ever. 2 days of quiet followed 48 hours where I almost believed he'd quit. Then Tuesday evening, a frantic knock. It was Linda, the HOA treasurer, in rare voice of reason. She said, check the bulletin board. I followed her to the clubhouse. Pinned up was a screed in all caps. Notice of HOA emergency action. Lot 22. It accused me of endangerment, illegal detainment, animal cruelty, and harassing a public official. It was Darren's unhinged revenge, posted solo to scare me. It didn't. It pissed me off. I filed a formal complaint with the HOA oversight, dormant till now, with a fat digital dossier, VY Deos, timestamps, fake fines, the skunk audio, and his rant. Jake added an FI to VYT about the skunk's safety. But I went further. I printed 30 flyers, know your rights, fighting HOA overreach, and slipped them into mailboxes. They outlined how to complain, vote out board members, and noted trespassing's a crime. The neighborhood ignited. Chat exploded with Darren horror stories, bird feeder fines, gnome color demands, bush measuring videos. People were done. At an emergency HOA meeting, Darren tried a last stand charts, notes, claiming I'd set a skunk on him in a calculated attack. I played the full footage, him breaking in, snooping, shrieking. The room stifled laughs. I said, if I'm the VY lane, explain this. Silence. The board suspended him that night, unanimously. By morning, his bulletin post was gone, replaced by an election notice, his name absent. He put his house up for sale days later, MOVYing out like a defeated general. Peace settled, no fines, no clipboard. The block partied. Jake brought Lord Pungent, caged, who stole the show. Watching Darren's MOVYing truck roll out, neighbors' fake water plants, eyeing his exit. He left silently, no grand goodbye, just a guy with a clipboard and no kingdom. The HOA reformed under Lynn, transparent, fair. The neighborhood softened, connected. A new couple moved into Darren's place. I welcomed them with wine. They asked if it's peaceful. I grinned, it is now. Some wins stink sweeter than others, but they're wins all the same.